Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I am so glad to be here. My promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I am so stoked to have Scott Ritzheimer with me. Welcome, Scott.
Lorraine, I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be a great conversation.
Awesome. And so tell my audience a little bit about what you do and who you serve.
Yeah, I have had a distinct pleasure in a relatively short period of time to work with about 20,000 different visionary leaders, help them start or scale both businesses and nonprofits. And so it's the coolest group of people in the world. I mean, founders to me, visionary leaders, we're all a little crazy, and that's exactly what I like about it. It's dynamic. It's so much fun, and the impact is there. I mean, if you take any one group of people that can have a bigger impact on the next 10, 20, 50 years, I would say across the world, it's founders and entrepreneurs, right? These are the businesses that will be the mega businesses of the future. And even if they're not mega businesses, that will have the impact that I think is really going to change the world. So the hard part about it, though, and this is a lot of the work I do with founders, is I would say that founders have the single hardest leadership journey out of anyone else. For example, if you take sports, right, there are sidelines, there are rules, there's different positions. As your progression through sports changes, there are distinct moments and distinct positions and distinct responsibilities. Or even if you take the leadership journey of an employee, they start at the front line and it's all about, hey, what can you get done? Your productivity. And then maybe they become a project lead and now they're leading a small team. It's like, how do you start to manage people? And maybe they get promoted again. But at each of these stages, in just about every other arena, there are clear demarcation points. But for founders, there isn't. Right? You're founder and CEO on the day that you start your business, and you are founder and CEO the day that you sell your business. But you've gone through multiple massive season changes during that time. But there's nothing really to point to the fact that it's changed, that the rules have changed, that the game has changed, and how to succeed. And so what ends up happening, and I think this is why so many founders are frustrated, right? Why the gap between their vision for their organization and what they're able to achieve just feels like it gets bigger and bigger. It's not like, it's like we might be growing, but it's like, man, my vision's growing even faster. Or I know for me, the biggest challenge was I felt blindsided, right? It's like, this is what it takes to succeed. I know what we need to do. And then all of a sudden something would come in and, it would be anything from like, I remember the first time I had to sit in a leadership team meeting, and it was a leadership team that I created, right? I'd never even been in one. I was like, I have no idea what to do with myself. It's kind of like Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. On a kind of a sadder note, I remember when I had to fire some of my best friends because they just weren't keeping up with where we were going, and just the devastation that comes from that. And managing people, trying to lead people, trying to be a visionary, trying to do the work yourself. It's so messy, right? But it doesn't have to be. And I've really given myself to how can we start to define what some of these stages are for folks? How can, everyone wants to get to the next level. How do we define what the next level actually is? And should you even get there?
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. I consider myself a founder, and yes, I am definitely crazy. So that's good. I meet the criteria. So I was like thinking about, how you got into this, it's like, how did you just wake up one day and say, I want to work with founders, or what made you go into like reach out to founders? I mean, because we are a crazy group. So why?
It was totally accidental. I can claim no credit in this whatsoever. I was actually looking for a part-time job, and I got a part-time job at a company that helped nonprofits get started, a lot of churches, some ministries, some other nonprofits. And the thing that a lot of folks don't realize is that nonprofit founders, I should say, and for-profit founders, they're cut from the same cloth, right? They're visionaries through and through. And so I actually got a job working part-time at a company that helped them start their organizations. It's actually quite difficult to start a nonprofit from a legal administrative standpoint. And so that's what we did. And quite honestly, after I joined that company, about 3 months later, it was sold in an owner finance deal. It was a small business. It was sold to another small business. And I watched both businesses be systematically but unintentionally destroyed by the process. Everyone lost in the deal. And it was a really painful introduction to a career, right? It was the first couple working years of my life. And it was just a brutal process. But I learned more in that about 18 months than I could have through an MBA program, even at some of the best schools in the country. And learned what makes, especially small businesses, succeed, what makes a sale work, right? What makes a company sellable. And as hard as it was, I absolutely fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the challenge of building a scalable and sellable business. And that's where it all kicked off.
I love that. It's funny. So many things are going through my mind right now as you spoke, and you're here today and you failed, and a lot of people don't realize that, what, as soon as you put that sign on the door or the virtual sign that you're in for business and you are looking for business, you're going to fail. And it's whether they say 85% of the businesses before 5 years pretty much fail. So you're one of the very few. I'm one of the very few, but we fail, and it's hard when we fail, but if you can learn from it, like it seems like that you did, which is amazing. And of course I did, you're a 1%er. You're just moving, you're moving. So anyways, I'm into this founder thing now. I can call myself a founder, so I'm really excited now. So what's the one thing every founder must do? What would that be?
That's a great question. What the problem actually is the problem of that question. And it is that there is no one answer. So there's no one answer for every founder. And where we get ourselves in a lot of trouble is thinking that there is, right? And what happens is there are actually 7 answers to that question. We won't necessarily go into all 7 of them, but there are 7 stages that founders go through from before they launch to when they become what I call a visionary founder, where they either sold their business or transitioned it to new leadership, and now they're able to just pour into other visionary leaders. And each one of those stages, there's a different answer to that question. So the one thing that every founder must do is they need to identify what stage they're in so that they can identify the one thing that they need to do in that stage.
Yeah. It's funny. I was going to ask you a little bit about, your 7 stages. What do you think is the most critical stage in that founder's evolution?
It's kind of like saying which of your children is your favorite, right? It's not quite a fair question. Look,
I want to know.
Yeah, each one of them is critical for a different reason, but where I find most folks get stuck is not necessarily in one stage, but it's in the kind of middle of the journey, if you will. So these are folks that have had success, right? They are the 1%ers. They've gotten through the first few years of the business. They've got at least a handful of employees around them. And there are a series of stage changes from about 5 to 50 employees that they're earth shaking when you go through them. And because what's happening is you are progressively moving from your own abilities and skills, right? I actually use a sports metaphor to kind of illustrate the journey because it's so hard to see as founders, but you're moving from that star player to a GM in the box, right? And there's multiple stages along the way, but when you're a GM in the box, you don't have to be there when the game happens. So it doesn't matter how fast you can run. It doesn't matter how big your hands are to throw a ball or make a catch. It doesn't matter how strong you are. So many of the things that made you an exceptional star player are no longer relevant for your success. And in fact, if you come out of the box and jump onto the field, it's not only helpful, it's a penalty, right? It's actually undermining your success. And so there are 3 stages that really are the critical point for founders. And the first one, stage 3, it's called the reluctant manager, right? Is you got a group of people around you and you're asking yourself the question, what's wrong with these people? Like that's how you know if you're in that stage. And let's say you get the strategy right. You understand how to be a better manager. You don't have to be an unbelievable one, but you have to be at least an okay manager. And you get to the next level. It's not up and to the right. It's actually down and to the right. It feels even harder. It's where you move into a stage I call the disillusioned leader. And you start to wonder, is this as far as I can take this? Is this it? Is this really what like being a founder and hiring all these employees has been about? Because this is hard. And I liken that 4th stage, that disillusioned leader, to kind of like if you watch a movie and you go through the first, call it, it's an 1.5 hour movie. You go through the first 80 minutes of the movie. It's downright depressing. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And hopefully there's some comedy along the way, but you get down to that 80th minute and it's bad. It looks really bad, right? The hero's about to lose. And what happens when we kind of assess where we are in that disillusion stage, it's like looking up from down inside the valley and just wondering what went wrong. But the truth of it is we're only one step away from what is the most remarkable transition for any founder. And it's like, when we don't give up then, it's like we get to the last 10 minutes of the movie where it all becomes worth it.
Yeah. And, I was just like thinking about it, there probably should be another stage in there, because I was progressing with you as you said those 2 things. And one of them is, the reluctant person, and it's like, I remember when I first I made my first hire. It was hard to do, number 1. Number 2, it was crazy. And it was like, I have to say, you had mentioned that it was one of the hardest things, it's a hard thing to do. It's very hard, but there's something in between that like a little bit maybe between the reluctant and the disillusioned leader that happens too, that nobody talks about. But I kind of want to, being that you're so skilled in this, I'd love to hear your viewpoint on it. I feel there's a grieving part that happens. It's like all of a sudden you become, I have to be a leader now.
Yeah.
And some days I can't even lead myself, and it's like, and then I have to lead it. Now I have to lead a team, and now I have all these moving parts. And I felt like, well, before then I did everything what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. I don't have like, so my staff, is literally one person right now. And then I have a lot of subcontractors that I work with. But what I realize is like, I have to get work ready for them. Well, this isn't fun. Can't I just do this myself? And like, oh, no. And it's like, so I don't think I've been disillusioned. I realize that once you make that first hire, you need more. You need more hire to do all the things that I want to do and create. You need more. So you brought up I just wanted to kind of put that in, because a lot of people think that, oh, you hire someone and everything's going to be just peachy keen, but there's a whole learning stage that happens in there too. So, and I'm sure you cover that maybe in your book, but it's something that I think about a lot. It's like, I love to be a star.
Yeah. No,
Isn't it all about
you
me?
yeah, you've exactly. And it's not even an ego thing, although there's some ego in it. It's that you are a star, right? And now you're surrounding yourself with people who they're not like you. They're not able to really keep up with you stride for stride. Now it's worth it because a whole team can get a heck of a lot more done than one person can. And we've got to get over that. But you're absolutely right. Each stage has grief in it. Right. Every stage requires you to sacrifice something, especially something that was working before. But each stage also has a joy in it. And the joy of the stage that you're in, you're really talking about the heart of the reluctant manager stage. Now, we don't want to get stuck there. You don't have to always be a reluctant manager. That's not what we mean by it. But that grief that you're feeling is why I actually gave it a negative name. All but 3 of the stages have positive names, actually. And so the 2 that we're talking about here, the disillusioned leader, the reluctant manager, the reason why they're negative is because the grief is so heavy if we don't understand the whole process, right? If we're not looking forward to where we can get at stage 5 and 6 and 7 and what the return on all of this is, no one ever wants to get stuck in stage 3. It's not a place where founders are meant to stay. No one even wants to get stuck in stage 4. So you're absolutely right. There's a grief to it. And it's like that movie. It's not worth it if you stop here, right? But if you keep going, that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just think about, you use the sports metaphor, but even if you think about what would happen if everybody came to watch a football game and all of a sudden in the third quarter, everybody decided to go home. First of all, the fans would be very upset. Everybody would be like, the TV producers would definitely be upset. It would be a disaster. So awesome stuff. This is the part of the show where I love to get a little real. So what do you love about being in business for yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. Being in business for myself, what I love about it is the ability to go after the thing that's closest to my heart, right? Like I have the most control over the direction that I'm heading. And I love that. Even running a company and doing it with a co-founder, I didn't have that same experience. So doing it on my own has been awesome. I think the other part about it is, especially as a coach, where I'm leading through influence, not payroll, is the ability to move into multiple spaces really quickly. I get to deal with this challenge, and then I get to jump straight to the next challenge for the next client. And I love the variety of that, and the people that I get to work with.
Yeah, I love that. So we both know this, a lot of our family and friends, they think we're really cool. Maybe they don't, that we own our own businesses and everything, but we both know that it's hard. There's certain struggles that we face every day. What would you say is your biggest struggle in today's world?
Yeah, coming from a bigger business, after I sold my company, we had a little over 70 staff at the time I sold, to coming and working for myself, I miss the camaraderie of it. That's the biggest thing that I miss. It happened right before COVID hit. And I remember my biggest kind of regret through the whole process. I don't regret selling. I don't regret how we transitioned. It was all wonderful. But the one thing that I really missed was leading a team through that process, right? Leading a team through a challenging time is something that it's still a really big challenge for me. And it's kind of the cost of your earlier question, right? Going to business for yourself, doing what it is I do. There's a benefit to that, but that same benefit comes with a downside that I have to actively manage.
One piece of advice that you could give someone who is a founder or is thinking of being a founder or is a seasoned founder? Universal. So one piece that will encourage them and move them forward.
I would say find the joy in the journey. So I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And so my 12-year-old was born when I was 25. My 2-year-old was born when I was 35. And I was a very different person at 35 than I was at 25. And I enjoyed the first 2 years of my 2-year-old's life 10 to 1. what I did for the other two, because it's kind of like, I don't know what do I do with them? You know, it was a little like I had my thing and I was waiting for them to grow up, and I wanted them to get to their next stage so that I could enjoy them more. And I missed out on so much in the process. So, you know, are 0 to 2-year-olds my favorite category of human in the world? No, they're not. Like I always feel awkward around babies, but my ability to enjoy the joy that was only available in those first 2 years of her life is so different than it was for my older kids. And so I would say the same thing for founders out there is, don't wait to get to the next level to find joy. Find joy in the stage that you're in. Find joy in every step in the journey, and you'll not regret it.
That's awesome. Yeah, too many of us, you know, sometimes we look back. I look back to when I first started my business, is like I felt like it was a whirlwind. And what a great analogy with the kid, you know, kids. I have 4 myself, so I can totally relate. So what is, and I ask this, sometimes I ask this, but you know, you seem like you really know a lot. And so I love if there's a favorite book that would help somebody move forward and that probably helped you the most, what would that be?
A book that changed my life and is the basis for a lot of the work that I do now. I'm close friends with the guy who wrote it now afterwards. It's called Predictable Success. It's actually behind me. And it does what my book does for founders individually, it does for organizations as a whole. So it helps them to understand what stage they're in as an organization and what strategies they need to engage at that stage for success. And long story short, it changed my business. We tripled our bottom line in a single year. And it changed my life. It set a new trajectory for where I was going with my career. And I would highly recommend it. Predictable Success by Les McKeown.
I love that. So if somebody resonated with you today and is a founder and may need a little help along the way, how would they get in touch with you? And do you have something to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest way is to head on over to our website, scalearchitects.com/founders. And what you'll find there is a free copy of my digital book. It's called The Founder's Evolution, Conquering the Journey That Every Founder Must Face. And the big promise here is that if you get through that book, you identify what stage you're in, and you grab the 2 or 3 essential strategies that are there, you will be able to stop doing about 20 or 30 things that you feel like you have to do right now. So most folks who go through it, I haven't come across someone who hasn't said this is true, but they've been able to take 10 hours off of their next week and things that they realize should be doing things that you don't actually need to do. And with that focus, they've been able to enjoy the journey a lot more and just have the time to do what they need to do.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being such a great guest. And to everyone out there, thank you for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We have a lot of great guests that come on, like Scott, and we learn so much from other founders and business owners. So thanks again, Scott. And until next week, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram at Biz Gone Social for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.